Thank you very much, Herman and Lisa.
All right.
So now we are moving to Sylvia. Sylvia is just living a few kilometers from the house of Lisa and Herman. Sylvia participated in the past to a different journey. And actually, our first journey in California with the university, we had Herman and Lisa speaking on the future of the Silicon Valley, but we had also Sylvia, who was at those time the head of the outpost of France, of the French government in California. Sylvia was one of the most brilliant students in France, and so she was sent in California by the French government to help French people to adapt and try to find some money in the Silicon Valley. So thank you, Sylvia. Are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
And now Sylvia, I've been through a transforming journée. Elle s'est retrouvée dans un voyage de transformation. Et après avoir été une brillante économiste, elle a décidé de s'intéresser au futur. Et donc, tu vas nous parler en anglais ou en français, chère Sylvia?
If you're fine with it, I'm going to do it in English.
Okay, thank you very much. So, what is your subject and what is your story? Perhaps tell us one or two words about your story from France to California, because that is very interesting also, before you speak your fantastic presentation.
Thank you, Michel, and thank you, everybody. First question, very logistic. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see your PowerPoint. Yes, we see perfectly.
Okay, perfect. So hi, everybody. I'm very, very glad to be part of this. And thank you, Michel, for the very kind introduction, very flattering. And also, of course, I can give you a few words on my background. I actually planned this, so that's perfect. So as Michel was saying, I worked quite a long time for French government as part of different agencies. And I would say I have two career paths. One was with startups, doing a strategy for startups, helping them actually go to the US market, what we call go-to-market strategy. I also helped this company with fundraising, and I did that as part of Business France, French Tech Hub, and a company I co-created called Big Bang Factory. But I also have a second career path, which is a little more recent, where I decided to dedicate myself to future thinking and strategic foresight. By really trying to extend the horizon to which I work with the company, more going from the 3 years horizon that we usually work on with startups, like 3 years for projects, 3 years for funding, to a longer horizon closer to 10 years, as we do in future thinking most of the time. Before that, I worked for Accenture. I'm also part of different training programs that I help with, MBA teacher for SN, mentor for different incubators or accelerators such as the Refiners, French American Chamber of Commerce, HEC Launchpad, which means HEC in the US. I'm based in San Francisco. I've been for the past 15 years, and I am a certified futurist with Institute for the Future. And today I am actually going to talk about this specific aspect, future thinking, and the way like the Anglo-Saxon do future thinking. So that will be a very methodology-oriented presentation. I'm not going to unveil what's going to happen in the next 10 years, but I'm going to help you do it by yourself, hopefully. Don't hesitate if you have any questions along the way. I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I will take a look at the chat at the end so that we have a few minutes for questions. So this is a presentation in 4 parts where I try to go along the methodology of future thinking. And for this, I decided to start with what is the difference between thinking the future, so the discipline of future thinking, and predicting the future, which is closer probably to forecasting. So really what we try to do when we do futures thinking is to understand the big picture, understand what we call the tide underneath the waves. Usually predictions are more focused on a particular indicator. It can be an economic indicator, a performance indicator, but it's usually linked to one or two metrics. Whereas future thinking really is comprehending big, complex systems, big, complex transformation. A second thing very specific to future thinking is, even if in the wording we use thinking, it is really about action and taking back agency over our future. In a sense, predictions sometimes make us fatalists, like it makes us lose control over the future, where we really try in the discipline of future thinking to get back that agency to create our own future, and specifically our preferred future. And I will come back on this concept of preferred future a little later. So a way to do that, we can start by creating a map to the future and looking at the big areas of opportunity, and then design specific action plan to achieve the better future we want to achieve. A third principle, very important in future thinking, we call it inoculation principle, and it's really like vaccination. You're familiar with this these days. You consider a whole range of possibilities to inoculate yourself from plausible futures. You imagine future scenarios so that you get prepared. You can prepare, and if one scenario comes true, then you will be better equipped and better armed for this. The 4 points of differentiation also is the process in which this future thinking is working and integrated with action. So we like to think of it as a 3 poles process, going from foresight, like a plausible, internally consistent view of the future, you can see it on the right, to insight, which is the true aha moment that will provoke you into action. And then the action, which will be a compelling way forward that can help you get there early. And the concept of early is very important. It's not be passive about the future. It's not just act towards the future, but act early to get the opportunity as early as possible. And then this will nurture your will of future. And finally, I'm probably not teaching you so much, but future thinking is mostly a multidisciplinary approach. It's built on multiple resources. It's built on multiple disciplines. You can find historians, sociologists, anthropologists, people from business, strategy, artists, design thinkers. So that's also what makes it a very rich discipline. And we like to say that the key strengths or the key skills for futurists are creativity, imagination, mental flexibility, foresight, like a taste for the future, of course, practical skepticism, empathy, strategy, and hope. We really tend to prefer the hopeful scenarios because they are linked to that agency we were talking about, instead of the collapse, which is more a closure and a defensiveness from acting on the future. Our raw materials as futurists is what we call the signals of the future, or the weak signals. You've probably heard about that concept. What we call a signal of the future is usually a small or local innovation that has the potential to grow in scale, and it's in geographic distribution. To give you an example, signals can be technology. They can be tool, apps, new software, new products. They can also be a scientific breakthrough. They can also be more on the business side, like a new business model, a new policy. It can be a government project, a change in demographics, a change in behaviors that you notice. So that can be many things that you notice. And as a futurist, you develop that radar where you get more and more acute as distinguishing signals. The idea with these isolated signals is that with training, you imagine what it would mean if they were clustered together. And usually we start to detect signals as inflection points when something is starting to change. So usually we are at the bottom of the curve of something happening, and the signals are just the first data points. of that chain.